Awesome. All right. So welcome everyone. Where we're going to be starting is where we left off last week. So we're on page 52, and where we're really starting is the very bottom paragraph where it says the Wright brothers. So bottom paragraph of page 52, the Wright brothers. And I just want to kind of tie this metaphor together as we kick off the Wright brothers paragraph. So what we read, we heard this story about these Wright brothers, and these were two bicycle repairmen that lived in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and they wanted to build a machine that could fly. And they were in a bit of a race with this gentleman by the name of Professor Langley. And Professor Langley, he had all the money and all the resources, and his flying machine, it crashed into the Potomac River. That's just a river in Washington, D.C. And when his flying machine, it was called the Aerodrome, which is, I think, a delightful band name. If you're just looking for one of those, Aerodrome, welcome to the stage, Aerodrome. Woo! You don't, I just helping in case you needed that. But the Aerodrome, it crashed, and from that moment on, we were, as a society, utterly convinced that man could never fly. And the metaphor is, those times in our life where we crashed, where our life fell apart and bad things happened to us. And I was absolutely and utterly convinced that there was no God, or maybe that God could not care about somebody like me. But then these two bicycle repairmen, they created an airplane, and we were able to change our minds. And in what we read on page 52, not only were we able to be like, yeah, man could fly, but we were able to be so radically open to this idea of flight that we're like, oh, heck yeah, we can put like man on the moon, maybe not even long either. And that is the change of mind and the change of perspective that I'm here in the second step. Just to change my mind, is it possible? So it says the Wright brothers, almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. So the mainspring of them building the airplane was faith. They had faith that they could do it. But for those of us who are on the second step, what do we know to be true? Faith without works was dead. See, in this metaphor, we're gonna see this metaphor carry on, but it's like kind of showing up to a meeting and seeing people who have their own airplanes that are flying around, living their best life in their little jumbo jets or their 747s. They're flying, and me having absolute faith that I could have an airplane too. But what do I have to do? I have to put it together. I have to build the airplane. So at step 2, I have faith that flight is possible, but I don't yet have the vehicle by which to get above the clouds, as it were. I was going to say up in the air, but I couldn't get the metaphor to land. That's a plain metaphor in the middle of my plain metaphors. All of that to say is, I don't have the vehicle yet. I'm just believing that exists. So it says, without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to the idea that self-sufficiency would solve our problems. Now, keep in mind, up to this point, what have we seen? We've seen in our own experience that my self-sufficiency has done nothing to give me any power or control over the physical allergy. And my self-sufficiency has done absolutely nothing to give me any power or choice over the mental obsession. And what we just read last week was the bedevilments and all of the things that I could muster in and of myself was not enough to allow me to enjoy permanent happy sobriety. You know what I mean? See, I stopped drinking, or I stopped using, or I stopped acting out on that compulsive behavior, and I'm filled with the bedevilments, and my self-sufficiency just isn't enough. And so it says, when others showed us that God's sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted the Wrights would never fly. And so what this metaphor is like, again, I'm showing up to a meeting, a 12-step meeting, and I'm seeing those who have recovered, those who are happy, where the light is on in their eyes. And they say, yes, It is God's sufficiency. It is a series of actions, the 12 steps that produced a spiritual awakening. That is what has allowed me to live free. And I'm like, no, thank you. That's not real. It's a little like me showing up to the Calgary airport and seeing all the planes taken off and being like, I don't believe you. I don't believe that, airplanes exist. You know what I mean? I show up to Air Canada or WestJet or United or Delta or Spirit. I don't know. Ryanair for those in the UK. That's the budget one. That's the only one I know. But it's like showing up to any of those terminals and being like, sorry, I know that airplanes work for you. I just don't believe in them. They're not real. And that's really what the metaphor is saying, that I am living in this belligerent denial despite seeing that power working right in front of me. And it says, and now what we're transitioning into is this idea of that argument that so many of us have, that idea of like, well, I don't know about God. I don't know about a higher power. It doesn't feel logical. So what we're going to do is we're going to use logic and reason to explain why it is logical and reasonable to believe in a power greater than ourselves. So it says, logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. So if you are coming here and you're like, man, they're going to ask me to get rid of my critical thinking, and they're going to ask me to get rid of logic and just do like woo-woo nonsense. No, we're retaining our logic. This is logical, especially in comparison with how we were living our lives. Bear with me with this. So it says logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance that we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses and to draw conclusions. It's saying like, hey, that didn't happen by accident. Maybe that was a gift from a power greater than myself, right? And so that's what we can do. We can use this power to reason, to examine the evidence. And it says that is one of man's magnificent attributes. We, agnostically inclined, would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. So what it's saying is those of us who've been a little bit agnostic wouldn't be satisfied if you were saying, believe just cause. That's not going to work. And we're saying, yeah, I hear you. And it says, hence we're at pains. It's like, we're like, man, we're begging you. We really want to let you know why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw our hands up in doubt and said, we don't know. And you see, if there was any reason to believe in a power greater than myself, it is two. The first is that what I am doing in and of myself has not worked. And I am utterly hopeless. And this thing that I don't like, I barely believe in, I just admitted a couple pages ago a possible existence of a power greater than myself. It is working in others. That's it. And that is more logical. Man, if regardless of the illness that I have, if there is something that is working and producing results, man, oftentimes we hear in meetings, some people talk about, if you told me to stand on my head in the corner, I would. I've not ever asked the sponsee to do that. I don't ask them to do things that I can't do. And listen, I am not that acrobatically inclined, y'all. I'm not doing no somersaults or nothing. I will take the rigorous application of the 12 steps in my life. But the truth is, if I was suffering from any illness and there was a proven way in which standing on my head could help, wouldn't we do it? And that's what this is like, regardless of what I think about it, regardless of what I feel about it. And even if I have had some bad experiences standing on my head, can I lay those aside and do it, approach it in a new way? I really didn't expect to spend so much time upside down in that metaphor. Well, all righty. And so now we come to this paragraph, and this is what I like to call our second step proposition. So our first second step proposition, step 2, part 1, this is step 2, part 2, right? Step 2, part 1 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe there's a power greater than myself? That's step 2, part 1. Now we're rocking and rolling into step 2, part 2. And it says, when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade. Rude of you to call me out like that, rude. And like postpone is to put off, and evade is to like try to avoid and escape, like try to dodge and duck. And it said we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? Man, that is a heavy question, right? I just believe that maybe there could be a power greater than myself. So how do we approach this question? Well, first and foremost, we can reconcile it. Because step 2 in its entirety says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So as I approach this question, God is everything or else God is nothing, what I can ask myself is, what do I believe? Is my alcoholism or my addiction or my compulsive behavior that is bringing you to this study bigger than God? Or is God bigger than my addiction or alcoholism or the compulsive behavior? Another way that I love to say this with sponsees is, what do I think is bigger? The power of the universe or my rinky-dink little problem with booze and crack cocaine? You know what I mean? What do I think is bigger? Right? And if I can believe that this power is more powerful than my alcoholism, what I can believe is that this power can restore me to sanity. And what we mean by that is remove from me that insane thought that I have when I am sober that takes me back to the first drink or the first drug or the first compulsive action. Does that make sense? Now, I believe it asked me a question, and it asked me straight out. So once we've reconciled that, let's see if we can answer that in our own experience. God is everything, or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What is our choice to be? And how, when I work with sponsees, how we do this is I ask, and then I'll ask all of you guys who are here today, you know, and feel free to close your eyes if it helps you to remember. You don't have to if you don't want to. But remember a time maybe in your life where you should not be alive today. You know, by seconds and inches, you should not be alive today. Maybe a time in your life where by seconds and inches, you should not be sober today, by seconds and inches. Is it possible? Is it possible that that was God? And we can look back in our lives, and I reflect on, have we ever had any of those moments of connectivity, this moment of feeling connected to a power greater than myself, a moment of awe and wonder, a moment of God? Have I had even a glimpse, a fleeting moment of that? And if I have to say yes to either one of those, what I must say is that God is, because I cannot say God isn't. And if I must say that God is, I am left with the concession that God is everything, because I cannot say God is nothing. And here's the deal, even if you're struggling to find within yourself, and most of us find them, we're riddled with examples of we should not be alive and sober and here today, and yet here we are. But if we're struggling, if we can just believe that somebody like me has better, and actually this actually might be a further stretch, somebody like me has better things to do on a Monday night than lie to you about my experience. Girl, do you have hobbies? Not really. But that idea, if I can just believe that Bill had an experience, can I just believe that Paige is not lying? If I can just believe the people that are happy and sober at the same time, that is their experience, I cannot say God is nothing, because God must be. And if God is everything. And that's how I reconcile that. And so the book meeting us where we're at, because I'm going to read that and I'm going to be like, whoa, that's a big ask. Keep in mind, the book always meets me where I'm at and gently and lovingly takes me where I need to go. So the book is like, hey, at this point, God is everything, God is nothing. Whoa, that's a lot. It says we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. Oh gosh, there's that question, faith. Can I have faith? It says we couldn't duck the issue. We couldn't avoid it. Some of us have already walked over the capital B, capital R, bridge of reason towards the desired shore of faith. And I always point out things that are capitalized, because not in its totality, but especially in this chapter and in many places in this book, if we see a word that is capitalized, it's like not in the, the start of a sentence capitalized, but you know what I mean? When a word that is capitalized, what that means is it is often a synonym for the word God. Or, and in this case, a synonym for something that we have put in the place of God. Have I made my own reason God in my life, my own ability to reason and logic? And has that been the bridge of reason? Now we're using reason to get to that place of a power greater than ourselves, to get to that second step place. We're using it. So it's a bridge. So it's not a bad thing. We're not saying, hey, get rid of reason, get rid of logic. We're saying, yes, it is getting us there. It goes on to say the outlines and the promise of capital N, capital L, new land. And that's kind of what that spiritual awakening is all about. It's getting me to a new place, new land, new soil. Capital N, capital L. It brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Luster is that shine in the eye, and that fresh courage to flagging spirits. Man, that feeling if I want to give up. And it says, friendly hands stretched out in welcome. You know, our sponsors, those who have recovered, those who are offering this message of hope, hands out, come on, just take these steps, just do it with me, I'll help you. That. And it says, we were grateful that capital R, right, made that my higher power, had brought us so far. But somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we didn't like to lose our support. It says that was natural, but let us think about it a little more closely. So again, meeting us where we're at. Without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? So this paragraph, what we're addressing is that question of, girl, I can't have faith. Faith isn't something that I can do. You want me to have faith in this power? I don't know if I can do it. And it's saying, you are here based on faith. And we're going to explain why. It says, for did we not believe in our own reasoning? Heck, I got faith in my ideas. Some of them not great, but I thought they were, you know. And it says, did we not have confidence in our ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we had been faithful, abjectly faithful to the capital G, capital R, God of reason. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time. And so if I'm ever struggling with that idea of like, man, I don't know if I can have faith. I don't know if faith is something that I can do. I'd like to ask this question. Has anyone here ever taken a floor pill? If you don't know what a floor pill is, that is a pill that you found on the floor. All I'm saying is if you, that's not just me, okay, cool. If you have ever taken a floor pill, girl, you got faith. Girl, you can do that inventory, no problem. And listen, if you've ever taken a car floor pill, if you're not sure what a car floor pill is, that is a pill that you found on the floor of a car, girl, you can make that amends. You can do it. You know that amends you don't want to do? Girl, you can do it. You got faith. The problem is my faith is just aligned in the wrong way. And another way to look at it is my experience is there was not a single time in my life that I did not turn to that power, which is alcohol, with absolute faith that it would relieve for me the pain that I was in. Man, I've got faith. I've just got to orientate it in a different direction. My car floor pill people, what up? Oh, anywho. It goes on to say, we found too that we had been worshipers. So not only, this is like, what? Not only do I have faith, but I worship, worship, which is like really in awe and making my God. And it says, what a state of mental goose flesh that used to bring on. That's like goosebumps, like mental goosebumps, like, whoa, the tingles. And it said, had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, things, money, ourselves. You want to know what it's like to worship people? That is codependency. I'm sure no one on the call can relate. I'm sure it's just me. And then when we talk about sentiment, worshiping maybe the good old days, worshiping certain values and principles, often ones that I couldn't live up to. Maybe that sentiment being that, and going into sentiment and things. Did I worship the new car or the new promotion or the new job? Did I worship that status and power and prestige and think that is what gave me worth? And ourselves. Did I not stand? Listen, I wasn't over here like, hey, just so great, but I thought I knew what was best. You know what I mean? I thought I knew what was right. And my experience is that I am frequently wrong. Ooh, Scott's got some in the chat. He says, a dealer friend, hold on, a dealer friend would give me 2 pills. I'd throw them in my mouth and then say, what do those do? After I'd swallow them. That is an example of faith. Absolutely. To not even ask what direction they take you. Are we going up? Or we're going down? Or am I just going to be on the toilet for a while? What are we taking? You know what I mean? Some of you have accidentally popped some laxatives, or maybe you haven't. That's not my business. All right. So, but that's faith, and that's what we're talking about. And worship are the things that I put in that power or in that position of God in my life. And it says, and then with a better motive. Then with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower. You know, those moments of presence where just, maybe the ocean, or, I live right by the Rocky Mountains, or you're just enamored by a sunset. It's just so beautiful. It takes your breath away. Have I not had any moments of that? With that in the present moment, in awe of that moment is worship. And I mean, I'm not even controversially, because Bill's like, where we find utopia? Here and now. It's those moments when I'm here and now, man, that is where I'm aware of the presence of God. And so it says, who of us had not loved something or somebody? Who here has children? Now you got the terrible twos, you got the terrible tweens, you got the terrible 22s. You know what I mean? There are times where I'm not a parent, I'm an auntie. So but I'm with you. Actually, man, I wasn't going to tie this in, but we're tying it in. Sorry, I caught my ADHD in the act. I'm like, oh, there we are, an idea. But listen, there's sometimes we got kids, the terrible 27s. Absolutely. That's great timing too, because he just popped in. Welcome, glad you're here. There's times where we got our kids and we're like, man, why wasn't I a hamster? I just want to eat them, it'd just be easier, right? But there's also that moment, and I'm sure the parents, I'm sure y'all relate, where that kid, again, doesn't matter when they're the 2s, they're 22s, they're 27s, they're teens, they're 4s, they're whatever, where they have just been driving you nuts all day, when they are on your last nerve all day, and you finally get them to bed, finally, and you close the door, and you're sitting, maybe it's in the living room, and you just have that moment, and that's maybe not, some of you guys know, it's not even 20 minutes later, half an hour later, and you miss them, and then maybe you go to their room and you kind of open the door just a crack because we don't want to wake them, and you just watch them as they sleep. Anyone here ever had that? And I always remind myself that if that is how somebody like me, deeply flawed, frequently wrong, can feel about another human being, is it possible that that is the way in which the God that is on offer feels about you, and infinitely more so? And it's those experiences that tell me more about God than anything I could, just try to intellectualize. I get there through doing, and it's experiential. And so it goes on to say, how much did these feelings, these loves, these worships have to do with pure reason? Little or nothing we sought last. And were not these things, these moments, the tissue out of which our lives were constructed? When we look back at our life, what do we remember? Do we remember logic and sequence? No, we remember those moments of presence. And it said, did not these feelings, after all, determine the course of our existence? It was impossible, and this is important, it was impossible to say that we had no capacity for faith or love or worship. In one form or another, we'd been living by faith and little else. Goes on to say, imagine life without faith. We're nothing left with pure reason. It wouldn't be life. But we believed in life. Of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line as the shortest distance between 2 points, yet there it was. And you know what's interesting about that? Because we want that idea of like, okay, I need to be able to prove God in my life intellectually, just like I can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. Although recently they were dropping some marbles down a thing, and a slight curve got the marble there faster than a straight line. So even when I use logic and reason and my best mind, often I have to examine and come to a new conclusion. You know, I love that. I don't know if you ever seen that, like that where they were dropping the marbles, but I know I've dropped my marbles several times. Didn't know where they landed, lost them completely. All right. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that, at least so the chemists said. You know, there's a purpose and a rhythm to this, to life and to science, and there's these things that are happening behind the scenes, that idea, and I spoke about this before. I take 2 hydrogen atoms, and every single time I add an oxygen atom, I will get a water molecule. And if I take that water molecule and I bring it to Calgary, it will freeze because it has been chilly. And if I take that same water molecule and I go visit Scott, it's going to turn back to water. And if we heat it back up, it's going to turn to a gas. And that's, man, is there not something beneath that? But also, what matters most in my life? It's not what happens to the water molecules. It is those moments of presence. That's what my life is made out of. And it says, hence, we saw that reason is in everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though it emanates. So emanate is to come from, though it emanate from our best minds. What about people who proved that man could never fly, right? That idea of proving that. Anyone here ever had the mental obsession? Isn't that a great example of where reason is insufficient? Anyone ever reason your way into probably the worst relationship of your life? You know what I mean? I knew it was meant to be. The blue of his grippy socks matched the blue of his eyes, you know? Yeah. Oh, don't tell me I'm the only one. You know, my logic and reason, man, it doesn't get me where I need to go. And it says, yet we've been seeing another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world. People who rose above their problems, they said, God made these things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but like to tell ourselves it wasn't true. So we'd seen this, and that's what I mean, and that's how the metaphor ties together. I come to places like this, and I see you guys flying. I see you happy and sober, and the light is on, and I just need to believe that if I take the actions that you take, I will be able to fly as well. That's it. That's it. That's all that's asked of me in the second step. It does no good for me to be like, airplanes aren't real, or to be like, I love your airplane. I'd love to go first class and not buy a ticket, not book the flight, not build the airplane. I've got to have faith and works. But we're just believing that the destination exists. And these next 2 paragraphs for a lot of people have been really helpful and important for beginning to develop that conception of a power greater than themselves. It goes on to say, actually, we're fooling ourselves. For deep down in every man, woman, and child, every human being is the fundamental idea of God. And I'll just share with you what that experience looked like for me. I'm sure this is going to be a surprise for you guys. But growing up, I was a very anxious and not well-adjusted child. I know. And when I was in I was maybe kindergarten, maybe it was the 3rd grade, they showed a fire safety video at school. I did not need this fire safety video. And every night I would pray. And I would, well, again, very well adjusted. We don't need to look too hard into this. But every night, what I would do is I would pray and be like, please don't let the house burn down. Please don't let the house burn down. Please don't let the house burn down. I know. There were no red flags about my well-being. But that idea that even from that early age, there was a yearning to some sort of power beyond myself. And do we not see that all throughout history? We can go study different cultures throughout the world and throughout the world's history, and every single culture has a belief in a power greater than themselves. Is this not a fundamental part of my being yearning, seeing the stars at night and awe and wonder who all made this? And it goes on to say it may be obscured. So this idea of God is obscured, blurred, blocked off by calamity. Calamity is the stuff that happens to us, the bad stuff that happens to us. A modern word for calamity would be trauma. That's what we're talking about. It's this idea of God blocked by things like trauma, by pomp. Pomp is ego. You know what I mean? Often pomp is that like, ooh, I'm so great. Don't you know who I think I am? You know? But just in my experience, for me, that pomp can be a whole lot of, I hate myself and I'm the worst person that ever lived. Still thinking about me and still exaggerating who I am. That's not the literal definition of pomp, but like just rolling with it. And then by worship of other things. Well, what other things could I worship? Well, it just gave us some examples, right? People, sentiment, things, money, ourselves, by putting other things in that position of God. But it says, but in some form or another, it is there. And so what we're going to do with these 12 steps is we're going to begin to clear away that stuff inside of us that is blocking us from that connectivity, that connection with God. That's what we're doing. In step 2, we don't have that. We have an idea of God, but we're just going to begin to clear away that stuff as we go on with the rest of the steps. And it says, for faith in a capital P power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Faith is wonderful, but more important than that is the demonstration of this power. And I'm reminded, as somebody who has recovered, that I am called to be a demonstration of this power, allowing and letting this power to work and flow through me. It doesn't do any good if I tell you what I believe and what I think. What matters is how I live my life and how I show up to you and the experiences that I've had. Does that make sense? And so it says we finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. This conception of God is a fact, just like us. We are existing. And it says we found the capital G, capital R, great reality deep down within us. So that is why we got to begin to clear away the stuff inside of us. And it says in the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. I'm sure I didn't do a whole lot of spiritual seeking before I came into the rooms. I did a little bit, but I couldn't find that connection out there and looking out there. I had to go within, and how we go within. Because again, I would hear those things, go within, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. You know what I mean? I was also telling a sponsee today, I had a friend who was sponsored by somebody who'd always say, be kind to yourself. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? I've had a lot of growth over the years, you know what I mean? Even in my understanding. But that idea of like how I go within, I begin to go within through the process of inventory. That is how I go within. That's what we're talking about, beginning to clear that away. Of course, prayer, of course, meditation. We're not stopping at inventory. We're going to do sharing that in our 5th step. We're going to do that 6 and 7. We're going to go out and make amends. That's what we're doing, but that's where we're starting. And so it says in the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us, and it was so with us. That is our experience. Oh, that's a wonderful question. When the recording's done, and probably tomorrow, it's going to be uploaded on YouTube, and I'm sure Rob can toss the YouTube channel in the chat. Awesome. It says we can only clear the ground a bit. We, like me doing this, I can only do a little bit. But it says if our testimony is our experience, us sharing our experience, helps sweep away prejudices to have opinions opinions about things I don't have experience, right? Those old ideas. Enables you to think honestly. So we don't want to get rid of thinking. We're not throwing out thinking. Encourages you to search diligently within yourself. Then if you wish, you can join us on the capital B, capital H, broad highway. Now we're going to see great reality and broad highway again. We're not going to see it until the step 5 promises, but just know we're going to be picking up those. And well, for us, it'll be a couple weeks, but we're going to be picking up those again. Capital B, capital H, broad highway. And this is a second step promise. It says, with this attitude, you cannot fail. This attitude of thinking honestly, searching diligently within myself, sweeping away the prejudice to the best of my ability. With this attitude, I cannot fail. I always want to point out that the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, or whatever 12-step fellowship you're a part of, they have to be alcoholic proof, don't they? You know what I mean? They got to be alcoholic proof. So if I show up with this, I cannot fail. And it says the consciousness. Now, consciousness is with knowing. That knowing, that deep knowing is sure to come. I will have a spiritual experience. If I show up like this and then follow it up with the work, that's what I got to do. And it says, in this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now. His change of heart. Now, that change of heart is another way to describe a spiritual awakening, right? When we're talking about the word psychic, as in psychic change, that psychic change is a change of the mind and of the soul. So his change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. And so let's read about it. So our homie, this is our homie. I call him my homie because I like him very much. His name is Fitz Mayo, Fitzmayo. I love him. His story is in our book. It's called Our Southern Friend. And if you're also wondering where he shows up, he also showed up in the doctor's opinion. He was the gentleman that was he hid in a deserted barn, determined to die. And I love Fitzmayo because he was the first guy that I related it to in the book, because I did something like that in weather like this. So, I mean, heck, I should not be here, you guys. And so what we're going to see is his Fitzmayo's second step experience. So on page 56, it says, our friend was a minister's son. Uh-oh. And so this whole paragraph are some of the barriers that he has to belief in God, right? And he's a minister's son. So he is going to have like religion shoved down his throat his whole life. And he's going to have some expectations of behavior that have been sort of forced upon him. So he's going to have that and be real sick of that. Anyone relate? And it says he attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education. So again, had it thrown on him and thrown on him and thrown on him. And he's like, man, I'm sick of this. And then it says for years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration. Now this trouble and frustration, we're going to see that they're synonyms to calamities, and some real serious calamities. So it says for years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration, business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. So in his immediate family, he experienced business failure, suicide, fatal illness, and insanity. Man, that's some heavy stuff, right? Our modern language, we might call that trauma. That's some real stuff. So he's had it pushed on him his whole life, and he has some serious stuff that's happened to him. And then it says post-war disillusionment. That feeling of what's the point of life? And he's talking about after that First World War, the senselessness and the meaninglessness of it all. Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. And those sound like that sounds like a whole lot of hopelessness to me, but it also sounds like some of those barriers that I have had, and some of us have had, to belief in a power greater than ourselves. And so those are the barriers. So we're going to see now he's going to have a powerful experience, but we're going to see what happens with those barriers. So it says, one night when confined in a hospital, and if you're wanting to read where this experience happens in his story's Our Southern Friend, you can make a little note to see page 215. We're going to go, if I do well for time, so there's no promises because it's me, but if I do well for time, we're going to pop over to 215 once we wrap up We Agnostics. So one night, when confined in a hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known, and I love that it uses known, right? Because we're talking about getting out of this intellectual knowing. He didn't know about a spiritual experience intellectually. He had known, as in that deep level heart knowing of a spiritual experience. Known. He had experientially had it. And it says, our friend being Fitzmayo, our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, if there's a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me. Also, I just love some of those old-timey words. I'm always, when I get to this part of the book, I'm always reminded to use, oh man, you have aroused my gorge, far more in casual conversation than I do, which isn't to say I don't use it in casual conversation. I just have opportunities that go missed. I'm really fun at parties. So it says, but later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question, is it possible? And man, if we're working, and this is just from my experience, if I'm working with a sponsee, if I'm working with somebody who's real defended, real guarded, what I have found is that phrase, is it possible, is really helpful. It's really helpful in just opening people up. And I learned that because I did Steel on Steel for many, many, many years. And we were always encouraged to use, when giving considerations to others, to use, is it possible, would you consider? Because that helps me not be so defensive when you're calling me out on my stuff. That don't you worry, it's blatant. I see it too. I just don't want to look at it. Woo. I'm sure no one relates to that, you know, when when your sponsor tells you to do something and it arouses your gorge, but you know you need to do it. Yeah, we know. So is it possible? It's just some helpful language to use in working with others. So is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? This man recounts that he tumbled out of his bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the capital P and capital G presence of God. And I love that. God as a present tense verb. God is in here and now, and God not here and now is a static. God here and now action, moving, working here and now. It says it poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tided flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the capital P presence of capital I, capital P, capital L, infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious, that with knowing, companionship. And I love companionship, that friendship, just as the idea that we have, that feeling we have for a friend, right? Friend, companionship with his creator. And so one of the things is when it talks about this like majesty of the presence of God pouring through like a tide at flood. If you've ever seen back in 2013, we had oh man, oh sorry, I'm sorry, again, this is twice today. I've caught my ADHD in the act. I'm like, oh, there you are. I'm gonna tell you all the story. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to, and I know nobody else was either. But in 2013, we had like a really bad flood in Calgary, and if you've ever seen like a river at flood, there is a power, and like trees and like there were some videos where it's like it looked as though houses were being swept away. Like stuff was like, it was powerful. And so the barriers that he has, like how I visualize it is, imagine these like cement like blocks that are there, those like parking blocks that are saying no, absolutely not, and the presence of the power of God. And so those barriers are what we see at the top of page 56. it being pushed on him, the, shoved down his throat, the pain and the suffering that he went through. But the presence of God is that tide at flood, and it swept it away, swept it away. All those barriers were swept away. That's the metaphor. Now, I'm going to read one more paragraph, and then I'm going to tell the story that my little noodle, or maybe God, I don't know, somebody told me to tell, and I'm going to tell you that story. So it says, thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. So that cornerstone remembers that second step proposition. Could there be a power greater than myself? He knows. Step 2, part 1, he knows there's a power greater than himself, because that power showed up and was like, who are you to say there is no God? Step 2, part 1, check, he's got it. And it says, no later vicissitude has shaken it. Vicissitude means problem or trouble or worry. And I love to say, if people ask how you're doing, you can, if you're having a tough go, you can say, I am positively bedeviled by vicissitudes, which has aroused my gorge. Just if you're wanting to, I don't know what your social life is like. I'm sure it's vastly different than mine. So no problem in shaking it. His alcoholic problem was taken away that very night. Years ago, it disappeared. Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned. At such times, a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly, he could not drink even if he would. God has restored his sanity. So in that moment, the mental obsession was relieved. So, I mean, listen, he got a lemon squeezy, like he got an easy second step experience, in the sense of God's like, hey, dude, I'm here. And God relieved from him the mental obsession. So he believed, step 2, part 1, that there could be a power greater than himself. Step 2, part 2, that power was more power than his alcoholism. That power could relieve from him the mental obsession. That happened for him experientially. And what I will say is, most of us on step 2 do not have that experience. Often for us, step 2 is just about believing there could be a power greater than ourselves. That's it. And could that power relieve from me the insane thought that I have to take that first drink? But what I always want to caution is, there's times I've been in rooms and I've heard people say, yeah, well, don't expect to have an experience like Fitzmayo. Don't expect to have one. That often they don't say it's Fitzmayo. Oh no, you can't have one like that. And that's not my experience. You see, I can't stay well on one drink. I couldn't stay well on one experience. I've got to continue to seek and have experiences. And I have had a Fitzmayo experience. And the tide and the thing, it tied it in perfectly. So in 2013, now I've been sober a while, so this is just, but I was evacuated because I live right by the river. And I was evacuated to a day home with screaming toddlers, which was not ideal. But also keep in mind, my external circumstances are not contingent. My sobriety is not contingent on my external circumstances. It's contingent upon my internal circumstances. I just want to preface that. But anywho, long story short, I started smoking cigarettes, as you do many years into your recovery, just well adjusted. And so I was smoking for a while. And then I switched to vaping just because I liked my nicotine to taste like candy, because I am an adult. And I was vaping for many years. And this is not like, listen, if you smoke, if you vape, if nicotine's your thing, I want you to know there's not an ounce of judgment. I get it. And this story is just my Fitzmayo experience and God doing for me that which I could not do for myself. Listen, I'm not an ex-smoker because I did not do it. So what happened for me is every year, there's this religious holiday that I partake in, and I'm not of any particular faith or religion, but I just love seeking, and I love seeking in an experiential way. You don't have to. This is what I do, and it's a holiday. It's one of the fun ones. It's where you give something up, because it's so fun. And you also, I was kind of taught, if I'm gonna give something up, why don't I give up that thing that I turn to instead of God? That thing that I worship instead of that power. And I know from doing this work, man, listen, I can't just give something up that I'm turning to instead of God. I got to add something to that prayer life. I got to add something to my prayer, my meditation life. And I know experientially, I got to find an additional way to be of service. So that's something that I would do. And I would do that every year. And I had these powerful experiences with it. And the one year, you know, I guess it would have been right before COVID. Yeah, because I mean, listen, let's be real. If I still baked, y'all wouldn't see me. It would be a white cloud of smoke. I would be a mystery. Because I mean, I had my sponsor at the time. She was like, I never saw anyone who baked as much as you. I'm like, girl, go to more meetings. Uh, but you know, as you tell your sponsor, I didn't. I just thought it. But I remember at that time, I really was asking, you know, I knew what I wanted to add to my prayer life, and I knew the additional way that I wanted to be of service, but I didn't know what I wanted to give up. And I was asking some people, I asked some sponsees, and they said, why don't you give up vaping? And I was like, oh, excuse me, I would never, ever, ever rank my sponsees. But if I did, you guys would be at the bottom. What a terrible suggestion that is. You know, absolutely not. And then I did what is known as two-way prayer. And it was an exercise that a lot of the Oxford group members participated in. And as I was doing my two-way prayer, the practice is where you essentially ask a question, and then you read some spiritual literature, and then you spend some time in quiet meditation, and then you write whatever comes to mind, and you do that for about 5 minutes, and then you spend an additional 5 minutes just in the presence of that power. And I asked the question, what should I give up for this holiday? And I don't even think it was in the writing. I think it was in those 5 minutes after. I can't remember which, but what I remember so clearly was, it wasn't who are you to say there is no God, but it was how big is your God? And what came with that was this deep and profound knowing of, you either trust me or you don't. You're asking these sponsees to take a leap of faith. You either trust me or you don't. And I was like, that's it. I'm gonna give up vaping. And then as we were approaching the start of that religious holiday, it just kind of worked out that I was working with more people, and I wasn't able to smoke as much, and my nicotine levels were going down, and I'm like, see, it's meant to be. And the day before, I had that realization that I think is not foreign to any of us, which is, oh, I've made a mistake. Oh, no. I am not, that is not what I am giving up. Absolutely not. No, I'm going to give up being mean to me or something like that. I don't know if I've even given that up now. But like, no, that's what I'm going to give up. Absolutely not. And I was at the coffee shop, and I received a fifth step from a sponsee, and then I had another sponsee that came, and we went outside to go for a smoke, and I was kind of talking about it, and while I was out there, you know, my vape, it had a lanyard on it, and that lanyard caught on the brake of my wheelchair and smashed to the ground, and I haven't had any nicotine since. And like, when I say, listen, I am not an ex-smoker. I couldn't have done it. So if you're vaping, vape away. You do you. There's not an ounce of judgment. But what I am saying is, man, I am reminded never to sell this power short. My experiences, time after time, this power has done for me that which I could not do for myself. And if I was just satisfied with sobriety, man, I would have missed out on the deeper levels of this power, building this relationship with this thing that I didn't like when I got here. And it goes on to say on page 57, what is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. What made me willing to believe? Coming to the end of myself, my plans, my ideas. I'm done. I got nothing else. And it says, he humbly offered himself to his maker, capital M. And then he knew. Even so, God has restored us all to our right minds. And when it says all, what we're talking about is the first 100 members, but deeper than that, all of us who have taken these steps and who have recovered all our right minds. Again, our right minds is removal of the mental obsession that is taken from me. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Fair enough. He had it at step 2 quite quickly. Some of us grow into it more slowly. Fair enough. But this is a promise. And so this is our second step promise. We got some sneaky promises. But he has come to all who have honestly sought him. But what that means, I need to seek. How do I seek God? These 12 steps. That's what I'm doing. And it goes on to say, when we drew near to him, so when I go and seek this power, Absolutely. When I drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. So as I seek God through the steps, I begin to awaken to that power, which is God. And in the chat, it says, there's no such thing as coincidences, just God, God being anonymous. And that's so true. Now, if you guys know me, and some of you do, I love my sneaky prayers. I love my sneaky promises. Heck, if there's anything sneaky in the book, I love it. So why don't we wrap this up? Because next week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be popping into step 3. So why don't we wrap up our meeting tonight with what I like to call, nobody else calls it this. Well, other people might, but like, I'm just saying, if you're like, hey, you know this thing, people might not. What I call the Fitz-Mayo 3rd step prayer. Shall we? And so the Fitz-Mayo 3rd step prayer, if you're looking for it, it's on page 215. And it's just, again, if you're looking for prayers, things to add to your prayer life. And page 215, and this is where we see, right where it matches the who are you to say there is no God. Let's go about halfway down the page. It's right after that short little line that says, yes, I replied. Oh, and 215 if you got the 4th edition. I don't know what it is if you got other editions, and I apologize ahead of time. But it says that, yes, I reply. He says, that isn't the way, he continued. The thing I do is to say, and this is what I call the Fitz-Mayo 3rd step prayer. God, here I am, and here are all my troubles. I've made a mess of things and can't do anything about it. You take me and all my troubles and do anything you want with me. And I think that's where we'll leave it today. So thank you guys for coming.